Welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is MotorTrend's vodcast about the future of automotive. And this time, boy, do we have something for you. We're going to talk to our first ever hydrogen experts, and not one, but two of them in a very special episode. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Johnny Lieberman.
Hello!
And this one is a really strange one. We're in the Podcast One studios. It looks great, similar opening intro. But when we cut to the interview, you're going to see something very different. We went down to the ACT conference, which is the, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up. I just said Advanced Automotive Clean Technology, something like that conference.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Whatever. It's about clean air. It's about future of automotive sort of technology. It was a big conference, industry conference in Anaheim at the Anaheim Convention Center a couple weeks ago. And we were there because a bunch of these new clean tech companies were getting together and showing off their hardware. And one of them happened to be Hyundai, the big Hyundai Motor Group. And they're showing off their new hydrogen fuel cell Class 8 semi-truck. So this is the big cab-over truck.
80,000 pounds.
80,000 pounds. We got to go sit in it, took pictures in front of it. And then we sat down and chatted with two of their experts that lead the business unit for them globally. And this was Ken Ramirez, Executive Vice President and Head of Global Commercial Vehicle and Hydrogen Fuel Cell Business at Hyundai Motor. That is a mouthful. And his guy, Martin Zeilinger, I said in the German way, who is Executive Vice President and Head of Commercial Vehicle Development Tech Unit. And I found out after the meeting that this guy was actually hired by Albert Bierman, who was he's from BMW.
M Division.
The M Division guru that helped sort of build up all of the Hyundai Motor Group sort of high-performance vehicles before he retired.
And what's interesting about this episode to me is that, you post anything anywhere these days about EVs and people go, what about hydrogen? What about hydrogen? And that's exactly what we talk to these guys about. What about hydrogen?
What about hydrogen, and in a very different way, from a very different type of vehicle than we normally talk about. We did not talk as much about sort of consumer-grade, light-duty passenger vehicles or pickup trucks. We talked about semi-trucks, the challenges in starting with business there. And speaking of challenges, in quite a challenging environment. So,
pardon some of the background noise. It was inevitable.
A lot of background noise in this one. We actually were there. I thought we were going to be there during the show and be nice and quiet. We were actually there during setup day. So they were building the booth literally around us.
Oh, literally moving the truck. There's a semi-truck rolling around. Luckily, it was hydrogen, not diesel.
But you can hear beeping noises. You can hear people banging on stuff. So, and then obviously the camera angles are going to be different from what you see now. But this is an experiment for us. We're trying to get out there, take this show on the road a little bit more, so to bring you all the best guests that we can. And getting these two guys, they work out of the Korea headquarters for Hyundai. Hard for them to come to the studio, so we went to them. And if you like this one and it's successful, please let us know, and we will do more.
And?
So without further ado...
Hydrogen,
Hyundai, and big trucks. Bring it on. We are this is a very different episode of The InEVitable. Ding. First, I don't have my bell. Yeah. Second, we are in a conference room, a small conference room in the Anaheim Convention Center, and you'll be hearing a lot of banging. We rolled the dice and came in here during setup day for the ACT conference, which is all about clean energy. So sorry about all the background noise, but we have two great guests with us. Let's go, Ken and Martin.
Yeah, Ken and Martin are joining us.
Thank you.
Together, you're tag teaming us on the idea of hydrogen for heavy-duty commercial vehicles. And my question to you, or my statement to you maybe, is sell me. Like, why bother with hydrogen? We know batteries are pretty good. Tesla just came out; they got an electric semi-truck. Why bother with hydrogen?
Well, there are many. Pass you first, or
Yeah, there are many reasons.
And this is Martin speaking, by the way.
Yeah, I'm Martin. There are many reasons to go for hydrogen, at least for heavy-duty truck, which are making bigger distances, long haul. So in our view, light commercial vehicles, passenger car, maybe they are well suited with batteries because they are involving a lot. But for heavy duty trucks which are making long haul, this is really a different story because of the energy density of that hydrogen as an energy carrier. So you can afford higher payload because the storage is lighter than a battery. And you have one asset which is really quick refueling. So we are talking about an amount in our design right now, but it's quite flexible. But what we have chosen is around 70 kilograms of hydrogen, and we are going to refuel that in half an hour.
And 70 kilograms of hydrogen moves a semi-truck how far?
450 miles around,
and that's
but
a full load, 80,000 pounds.
fully loaded. But that depends, of course, on the drive style, speed, and so. But at the average, we are counting for 450 miles.
And that's about the max distance legally a driver in the U.S. can drive anyways in a day.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So we are here in Southern California, and you're making the debut of your Class 8 semi-truck, the Hyundai, how do I put
Exient.
Sorry.
Hyundai Exient.
Yeah. Exient. Yes. Okay. This is now the 6th country then. You've done 5 already. I think Switzerland, Germany, Israel, New Zealand, and Korea. Okay. Why here? Why now? Either Ken, Martin.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, Jimmy and Ed, thank you so much for having us here, and it's so nice to introduce ourselves with you and us. And yes, you're absolutely right. It's the premiere of the production version of the Exient fuel cell tractor.
Okay.
This is a 6x4 tractor. For US, it's a tractor. We have, of course, seen the tractor before in the pre-production. It's now the production level and commercialized starting now. So it's real. And so why US? Well, obviously it's a big market for heavy-duty long haul, and the application for the tractor is excellent for it because, as we said before, the long haul and particularly the periods of time that you use it in US makes sense for this application for hydrogen. You asked a very important question: why hydrogen?
Yeah, right.
Because you could do many other solutions. And it's important to know that for us, we work on all the solutions. It's not just hydrogen. We're not here to convince you to only do hydrogen, but surely we want to convince you that hydrogen is a very viable solution and perhaps the better or best solution for certain applications. So for this application that we see here, long haul, for this size of tractor or truck, makes sense. And so we are offering a vehicle that can, as Martin said, have a range of 450 miles on our charge that takes only a half an hour. So for that, it makes a lot of sense. Hydrogen, very high energy density, therefore it's easier to store and transport high energy, which is very different than for batteries.
Right.
Lets you have more capacity for payload on the vehicle. The storage is indefinite as long as you don't have any leaks. That you have is indefinite storage.
Although my understanding is that everything leaks. Is another problem with hydrogen?
Well, that's
2% or something like. It's no.
This is the expert will tell you for sure, but no, hydrogen in a proper storage, and that we do, of course, it's will not be having any leaks.
Okay.
So it's very safe. But the point about the storage being indefinite is that as long as you have any leaks, and of course you may design it that way, hydrogen is an indefinite storage.
Yeah, it's a stable element, yeah.
It is a stable element and so forth. So there are many other reasons why hydrogen, not just the use case as you see here, but as an energy storage, energy transport, it's a very good solution.
But I guess, if you're saying like, hey, let's stop burning diesel and let's switch to hydrogen, like you still have to get the hydrogen, right? It takes energy.
Production of hydrogen, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you? Is it like the fact that the fact that you have to burn energy to make hydrogen? Like, is that being offset?
Yeah. Well, there are many solutions to to of course to produce hydrogen. First, we're not saying you have to stop use diesel. I mean, we obviously there are uses of diesel.
Sure.
And some regions around the world will continue to use diesel for a longer period of time. There are many solutions, as we've said. You have, of course, ICE solutions for diesel, for hydrogen as well, battery, hydrogen fuel cell, many different choices to do. And zero emission can be done with several choices as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not the only one. I think you're on the right track with your InEVitable expectations. But I think that the key point on your question is you produce hydrogen from many different sources. And so, yes, it takes energy to produce hydrogen, but what you can do is also produce hydrogen from energy that would otherwise not be used. So, for example, you have wind power that is idled when it's not necessary. So when there is excess capacity, you can utilize it and store it. This is why hydrogen storage means so much, because it's easy to transport as well. As an example, well, maybe Martin would like to add something more.
So you made a comment about leakage.
Yeah.
So technically, the gaseous hydrogen, either it's 350 bar or 700, what we use here in the US, is leaking. That's not the case. Maybe you have heard about liquid hydrogen, liquefied hydrogen. And in that case, because it's a super cold liquid, minus 250 in Celsius, sorry, I cannot convert in Fahrenheit.
Cold, very cold. Very cold.
Very cold. Near to the absolute zero.
Yeah.
And in that case, your tank must be insulated well. But there is technically never a perfect insulation. So you are having some heat coming in.
Right.
And that needs to, we call it boil off. And that's typically this 2%. Maybe you have heard that from that thing. But gaseous, we do not count any leakage.
But gaseous hydrogen, I mean, it's stored, we say 5,000 to 10,000 psi, 350 to 700 bar.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's at those pressures, it doesn't leak.
No.
Okay.
No, there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Can you just sort of paint the picture, though? Is the understanding correct that this is a solution for long-haul, heavy goods and materials being trucked over a great distance, but then the last mile will be something else, right? Is this hydrogen, you know, loaded at a place on a truck that's probably going to have a filling station to put the hydrogen, drive it 400, 500 miles away, drop it off, charge it there, and then another type of transportation will take it last mile. Is that the proper way for someone to think about it?
Not necessarily. The solution can serve all the purpose all the way through to final destination. So it's not a hub-to-hub only solution. You've heard about that, hub-to-hub.
Sure.
Normally we talk about that for autonomous driving and so forth. But hydrogen is a power source, either ICE or fuel cell, that can work all the way to the final destination. The reason why we say long haul is because on a battery system, for that kind of energy and that kind of load to carry, you would have shorter distances and more frequent recharge and longer recharge. With hydrogen, you have a longer distance at this point, now competing, but with a higher payload for the same distance and faster recharge. But I'm speaking a little bit for Martin.
So it's just the recharge time. There's not a greater efficiency for a fuel cell powertrain over a longer distance versus a short haul city stop and go?
Payload. Because if you have the same distance with a battery powered tractor or truck, because of the weight of the batteries, the payload is lower.
Okay.
So you have higher payload capacity because of the lower weight of the overall solution of a fuel cell plus a hydrogen, and then you have faster recharge.
Okay.
Well, maybe I was just to ask Martin, like, could you, because a lot of people listening, they hear hydrogen. Could you just, like, in as layman terms as you can, just kind of explain, like, okay, you've got liquid hydrogen. How does that turn into electricity? What does that entail?
So it's no matter if the storage is liquid hydrogen or gaseous. The fuel cell system is running at a pressure level of about 10 bar, 8 to 10 bar. So what is it? There is a membrane, and this membrane has a catalyst. And then you have two layers, which is an anode and a cathode. And through those layers is on the one side of that membrane, we have air, compressed clean air, which is running through. On the other side, we have hydrogen. And then in that catalyst on the membrane, you have a reaction that the hydrogen reacts with the oxygen from the air to water or water vapor, and that emits electrons. And those electrons, if you connect them, you have electric current and voltage.
Right. So I think there's, a lot of people, a hydrogen car, at least a fuel cell hydrogen car, is an EV. It's an electric vehicle.
Of course.
It's just that you're generating the energy on board rather than generating it at a power plant and then putting that into a battery. This just, it's through the reaction of hydrogen and oxygen.
You're making the conversion from a chemical source, to say the storage of hydrogen, to the electric source directly instead of from a battery being stored in other different ways.
Right.
But it's the same thing. It's an electric powertrain powered through the energy from the fuel cell, and the byproduct is water.
What about safety concerns? This is a question, of course, every hydrogen expert will get asked, right? Like hydrogen, they filled the blimp with that, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, any concerns for a large vehicle carrying a significant quantity of this gas?
Yeah, of course, hydrogen is flammable.
Right.
If not, it would not react. So that is one case. By the nature of hydrogen, it's super lightweight. So if it would leak, it would go just up. And as it considered as a flammable gas, there are several legislations and regulations which are really strong and which we fully comply. For example, if a hydrogen tank gets certification, there is a bunch of tests you have to do, or the tank producer and supplier has to do, to really convince that it's leakage free, crash proof, even gun bullet proof. So there's a lot of regulations we have to comply with.
Which is different than a gas tank, because diesel and gasoline are both extremely flammable, and those are made of like steel, right? I mean, there's nothing to a gas tank.
Gas and diesel. Maybe it's a different story. If it comes to CNG, it's the same story. So compressed natural gas, it's also having some regulations you have to comply with.
No, but I'm saying like hydrogen tanks, the ones that I'm familiar with, they're made of carbon fiber typically, so they're extremely strong, much stronger than steel, and they don't react, they're inert. The tanks themselves.
But CNG tanks are not so far away from that technology-wise, right?
Right. Okay.
So it is proven technology in the sense that it's applied, same type of technology, to other solutions that already are in the markets, and we are already in field operations in many places.
I've driven the Honda FC Clarity, I drove the Mercedes B-Class F-Cell, and they're great. They function incredibly well. The problem is, where do you get the hydrogen? So how do you, is Hyundai solving for that, or do you need the government to step up and solve for that, or the trucking industry? Because our understanding, could be wrong, but there's 55 stations in the U.S. that can give you hydrogen. 54 are in California, and one's in Hawaii. Right. So we study the same tutor, but you know what I mean. So okay, that's great that it weighs less, and because you can get electricity anywhere. Yes.
Oh, really?
Well, lots of places.
Lots of places. You are talking about 110 or 220 volts you can catch everywhere. Probably you are talking about the charging infrastructure for passenger cars, but a truck is a different story.
Right.
So if we compare that, the charging power of a vehicle is, if it's DC, which is fast charging, up to 350 kilowatts right away. And there are talks about more. Title is megawatt charging.
Yeah, megawatt, right.
If you compare that with hydrogen, so let's take our truck, 70 kilo of hydrogen. 70 kilo times 33 kilowatt hours per kilogram, that's a specific energy density. You end up with 2.2 megawatt hours of energy. Take half an hour for refueling, that's what we count. You are talking about 4.5 megawatt of energy power in the form of hydrogen. 4.5 megawatt Can you think about having that on a battery charge? Nowadays,
I can think about it. But
nowadays the standard is 350.
Yeah.
We are talking about 10 times.
Right.
And maybe some companies can have a demonstrator for a single truck. I believe in that. Single truck demonstrator cost what it wants, but imagine a fleet to get refueled. 4.5 megawatt times 10, 50. Then you need a nuclear power plant at your refueling station, right?
and look, we got those. But what I'm saying is like, where's the hydrogen infrastructure like coming from? Are you building it?
So the answer to your question before, and first, we're very passionate about it. You can tell.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm passionate.
So we love it, and we think we really believe in it. Not just believe, we are doing it.
Right.
So it's a reality today, and that's one of the messages we want to convey. In a humble way. No, we are doing it. It's reality today. The trucks are real.
You don't have to be humble. I mean,
they're out there. No, because we believe that all solutions are needed. And to answer your question, all of the above, all that you said, governments, fleets, all is needed. So everyone has to contribute to make it happen. But why do we believe that it will happen? Not that it should happen. It will happen because it's already happening. Hydrogen is, without a doubt, a very available source that can certainly be generated and be transported. We can see it happening for energy production hydrogen with available, as I said, energy that's not used in peak times. So many other reasons for it. But what is needed is the infrastructure, as you said, to happen. So this is where we see the whole value chain, the whole ecosystem, as we call it, where we play along in all the elements of it. Hyundai is probably uniquely qualified for this because we are the only group, at least the automotive groups, that have elements across all the value chain. So we can do it. We do today. We have green hydrogen production out of waste to energy, so biogas. In Korea, we do it. We produce the hydrogen, distribute, and full value chain. So we can do it, and we have elements of our group. Our group is quite broad, as you know, that can deliver all of those. But the fact that we can do it across means that we know we can be done. It doesn't mean we would do it alone.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is your question.
Let me rephrase it. Okay, so 450 miles on 70 kilograms of hydrogen.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
That gets you to Phoenix. Is there, right now, like if I buy that truck, is there a hydrogen station in Phoenix? And if not, in the other 5 markets that you've sold these vehicles, like how long did that infrastructure take to mature?
It's moving fast, I would say. I think that what happens is that when the use case is valid, and it is there, and we can see that now with fleet operators that see it, then the charge station will come quickly, and it's fairly easy to put in place.
But who built it?
So there are many partners who we work with that do that today, start to build that. We have also some activity that we do ourselves with our own, one of our group companies, Rotom. But we have also partners that we use in different places of the world. So in US would be a different partner than what we use in Europe, for example.
And some of this comes from some government subsidies, right? Like there's a huge push for green energy and getting some of these stations, not just hydrogen, but also scaling up electrical EV infrastructure, right? So this is sort of a public-private sort of partnership to get this thing done?
It absolutely is. It has to be a partnership, but it includes the public sector and private sector. And we happen to be in California, where there is a lot of this already happening, and we are involved in those projects, and I'm sure you know those. There are large-scale projects. There's one in Northern California which is again a combination of public and private, and we're all contributing to this to have a proof of concept, if you will. But in our case, for the tractor view, it's already in use in other parts of the world. So
right.
So
and look, I don't want to come off as being hostile. Like I've lived in LA most of my life. You know, the Port of Los Angeles is one of the busiest ports in the world. I think it's the busiest in the country. The 710, I was talking with some of your people earlier, is disgusting from diesel fumes. I'd love it cleaned up. Like let's get.
Well, they
this
say
going
everybody who
tomorrow.
lives on one side of that freeway, the rates of cancer are higher
Yeah.
because of the way the wind
Huge.
blows, because of all the diesel trucks that go up, and actually from the ships at the port.
Yeah.
So it's all terrible.
So yeah, we're totally in favor. I'm just, you know, I get a lot of people like hydrogen's this, you know, why bother with electric cars? We want hydrogen cars. I'm like, I don't know.
It depends on the solution that you
Right.
need. Yeah,
Right.
I would say there's absolutely perfect solutions for battery trucks as well, and we do make as well. I mean, so for that, absolutely the case. I think that's a perfect example of port operations. We are making activities in this area. So the project in Northern California is a port operation that would include hydrogen recharge stations. It is kind of a self-contained ecosystem, so it's routes that you utilize with the trucks, knowing where you come back to refuel. So your question of getting to a destination that wouldn't have a recharge today is mostly in a contained environment where you know where the recharge is. That is true. But that will come as solutions come forward. So we're making projects like that one. We're making a future project in our Georgia plant where we will have also a, let's say, zero emission transport logistics that we'll do with our trucks for inbound and outbound logistics. And so all this is moving quickly.
Let's pause for one second.
Okay.
Let's pivot real quick and just talk a little bit about that. We dove right in. We didn't do the normal thing and talk about like where they're from and what their favorite color is.
Yeah, okay. Martin, what's your...
Nice to meet you. Yes.
So let's go back to.
So we
Do
started.
German engineers have a favorite color?
We started dating without even knowing each other.
Exactly.
Hey,
So
you know what?
let's talk to Martin for a second. So you are currently Executive Vice President for CV-LCM Tech Unit at the R&D Division in Namyang. I've been to Namyang. It's a wonderful place.
Wow.
But where were you before you joined here?
Yeah, I was working for a global truck manufacturer out of Germany for more than 3 decades.
Does it have a star on it? There's a big star?
Yes, it has a star on it on some brands. Here it's known for a different brand, as you know. It's not with a star, but you know what we are talking about. Yeah, and I was all my life working for commercial vehicle trucks and buses. So,
Do you like? Is that like you've always liked trucks? Or you?
yeah, I love the professionality of that business because it's not having a nice, comfort, luxurious play something. It's a machine and a tool where our customers do their business with. If it's people mover, it's the bus industry, it's city bus or a coach, or it's logistics. Our customers have to run their business with our products.
Yeah, but they're comfortable. They have like TVs and things and nice seats.
Not buses.
Do you consider yourself a car guy? Are you very passionate about? What's your personal car? Do you have anything fun?
My personal car these days,
Yeah.
it's a Hyundai Tucson.
Okay. All right. Super cool. And you
The
live.
hybrid? The hybrid? No? Okay.
We'll ask why later. Ken, how about you? Prior to being I have it here. Executive Vice President, Head of Global Commercial Vehicle Hydrogen Fuel Cell Business at Hyundai Motor.
Wow.
Where
That's the title.
you
He
were
did great. He did great. That's
we
the
gotta
long
write that
one.
down.
That's the short version. So thank you for that. Yes.
you were at another multinational concern,
A real multinational.
French and Japanese,
I've
correct?
been all over the place.
Okay.
It's a long story. But the interesting part is that I'm not a truck guy.
Okay.
So I'm not long-term working in trucks, although I'm learning a lot from Martin and colleagues and loving it.
Yeah.
But I've only been working in the truck world, let's say, for a few months, a year or so.
Okay.
But I'm in automotive for more than 30 years.
Wow.
And so I'm a car guy, I would say. All in passenger side. I've been very fortunate to work in different companies in different parts of the world. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, very small island in the Caribbean.
We like Puerto Rico.
Without a magnifying lens, you miss it, but it's there.
Yeah.
And so Spanish is my main language, but I speak also English, Japanese, French, Portuguese, Italian.
Oh wow.
'Cause you were in Brazil.
I worked in Brazil for a couple of years. Yeah, exactly.
Falo Portuguese.
Yeah, falo português. Assim. Tudo bem. Very good.
What was your?
Thank you. So yeah.
So what was your? what was the first car you drove in Puerto Rico? What was your?
That's a very good question. So in Puerto Rico, it was a 1979 Ford Thunderbird
Whoa.
with a V8 engine that I love to drive in reverse. Because teenager, you do that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
You can
fair.
drive
Yeah.
from the school to home all the way in reverse. I'm not advocating to do that.
I like
really
this.
not.
This is the first time I heard this.
But it's fun fact.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is the days when suspensions were more like driving a boat, right?
Right.
To change lanes, you do this, and a few seconds later,
Right.
you
Right.
float to the other lane.
Yeah.
It's like steering a ship.
But yeah, I remember very well. Yes, Ford Thunderbird. Yes.
So you're also based in Korea, in Namyang?
Also based in Korea now, and but I have had very fortunate to work in U.S., Japan, Mexico, Latin America, London, Paris, Sao Paulo,
Wow.
and now Seoul.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
So-
a pretty good resume.
So I like what you said there, that you're only a few months into the trucking side of the business, but you've been doing future sort of technology in different capacities for a while. Where does the trucking piece of the puzzle fit in? I basically talked to your team and said, this guy's like the hydrogen guru at Hyundai, right? And they're like, yeah. Where does this fit in terms of Hyundai's sort of global, alternative fuels or hydrogen strategy?
Well, I think the point here is that it really fits well with our vision of progress for humanity. And we don't say that because it sounds nice. It's because it really is true. And for me, it's a great refreshing view, because I'm with Hyundai only 2.5 years. And what I can see is that when we say that, progress for humanity, we live it. We don't just say it. And of course, that's not always the case everywhere.
Right.
So that's really refreshing. For my view, personally, I'm an electrical engineer. So I come back to some basic points of energy and electricity and so forth, which I enjoy. I've been doing business for a long time. I haven't been doing engineering for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I've been running businesses all over the world, and my area is mostly, let's say, breakthrough on businesses. So where are we doing here? Why am I here for this? Is because we really believe as a company that our technology we're working on is not just correct, it's not just accurate, but it's truly delivering progress for humanity. And I believe in it fully, and I can see it in the company to do that. Hydrogen happens to be a piece of it, not all of it, as we said. We do believe it strongly. And I think fuel cell is really driving the future for many different areas. For trucking, of course, we are here to talk about our Xgent fuel cell Class 8 beautiful tractor that we have right behind us.
Right.
I'm sure you took some photos. It's,
Not enough because we didn't get here and set up. Yeah, we
yes.
took a couple.
We need to open it for you so you can see the fuel cell system.
Love to. Yeah.
Because this is really the heart of the machine and the tanks.
Well, let me ask you this. Combined, you guys have a lot of decades in the car biz. When did it...
A little too much. You said...
We're getting there.
We're just the two old guys that they found somewhere. I said, yeah, let's put these guys together. Surely they can do something.
But when did it become obvious or inevitable to
ding.
you? Yeah, to that.
Oh,
like,
that's a nice... You got the inevitable in. I
Gotta
see
be on
it.
brand, right? We gotta be on brand. But when did because when you guys started, there was one power solution, right? It was gas or diesel.
Yeah.
When did it become like, wow, we gotta stop? This isn't the gasoline and diesel are not the future. Like when what convinced you?
So I think the company is working since more than 20 years on the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And we introduced our first mass production passenger car in 2013. And then the second generation. And then some people were thinking, oh, what about the more heavy stuff? And then 2019, we launched the fuel cell electric city bus. Which is running now in Korea, in our domestic home market, with more than 330 vehicles all around major cities in Korea. And then soon after, it was the next question: why not trucks? Why not trucks as an alternative powertrain? And then in 2020, we went to our first application in Europe, Switzerland.
No, but I was asking though, like when did it like? You know, because
When did it
for
click?
me,
When
like
did it click?
I got into this business to do burnouts and like do, you know what I mean. And then at some point,
I do remember that. Yes.
drive reverse home from high school.
I do remember. Yes, yes.
And at some point, you know, it was, you know, someone said, "Hey, an EV is 4.5 times, give or take, as efficient as gasoline, burning gas." And by the way, burning gas, global warming. I now have a child. You know what I mean? Like at some point, it clicked.
Yeah, for me, you know, that's interesting. You made me remember this. I had not thought about it before, but for me, it was around 2010 when we were doing. At that time, I was in charge of. Part of my job was Latin America. I was in charge of Nissan in all Latin America, and I was introducing electric vehicles. And it was the period where there were no electric vehicles, right? They tried to convince people. And at that time, we were doing MOUs with governments to say we're going to try to introduce, and the government to help support the introduction.
MOU is a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, thank you. And that's when I first started to understand that it's not just my job, but this is actually going to make a difference.
Right.
And it's once you drive it, you believe it, and it's inevitable that you will change.
Ding.
I mean, look, I remember in 2008, 7, 8, I drove the Honda FC Clarity.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was this weird looking thing. I had no idea. And then it's like, oh wow, if hydrogen was available everywhere, this makes all the sense in the world, because it's like it's shooting water at the tailpipe in LA where we have a drought.
Sure.
And it drives better than an Accord.
Yeah,
like, why not do this? You know, what's the downside?
No, I mean, once you experience an electric vehicle, it really is hard to go back to just ICE. I think it's electric propulsion. First, you have immediate torque, so no matter what the situation, uphill, anything, it just feels fantastic. And for a truck to pull a weight and that immediate torque is a great solution.
That's
another.
So most of our audience is not in the countries where you've already launched either the bus or the truck. Mm-hmm. So most of them are North American. We have Australia kind of listens, and so does England.
India too.
India, surprisingly. What is the state of Hyundai's alternative fuel offerings, commercial offerings in the U.S.? Can right now somebody in some city in America go get on a Hyundai hydrogen bus, or
for commercial vehicles?
Commercial vehicles, and then when will we see this Class 8 hydrogen truck on the streets in America?
So commercial vehicles are an entry for us into U.S. It's still a beginning.
So
of the
zero,
story.
nothing yet.
We're at the beginning of the story. There are some presence here, but it's not commercially available yet. It's starting to do with this tractor. So we'll start this. We're starting the story.
Okay.
By the way, we can also help you become global, InEVitable.
Great. Yes.
To bring that. So yes. But this is the story, the beginning of the story, I think. But it's not the beginning of our story, right? I mean, we have passenger vehicle, quite credible presence. My personal car is a Tucson hybrid, by the way.
Nice.
So
okay.
And because once you do try, you believe in it completely. You're in it. So I think that our story is long and it's well credible and established in the U.S. from a passenger side.
Yep.
And now we bring all that technology and experience from other places in the world, which this truck is already in operation. You have close to 50 trucks in Switzerland, and more than 6 million kilometers, you mentioned before?
Yes, 4
4
million miles.
And in operation. So we have the experience with it. It's not that we're new in the realm, we're just starting the story here.
But I mean, there are. I think it's okay if you're new. There aren't a lot. As far as I know, there's not a ton of hydrogen commercial vehicles of any kind running in the U.S.
But to be honest, you will see a portion of that very soon in the next weeks and months, because what Ken mentioned, the North California, the project is NorCal Zero.
Yeah.
And that's exactly supporting the port drayage operations. And so you will see those trucks soon.
Okay.
If you ask us how quick will we come to volume, that's again a question of the infrastructure to be built.
Right.
There is no truck running without the necessary infrastructure, and that's not specific to hydrogen. For diesel, it's easy.
Yeah, right.
If you go battery electric for a truck, if you go CNG, if you go LNG, if you go hydrogen, you need a specific infrastructure. And that's also a question how quickly that will grow. And with that, I can assure the truck will not be the bottleneck in the growth.
Okay.
So
it's a very good point. In fact, in these projects, our trucks are ready already. Some of the projects are progressing in the other areas of infrastructure, and those are the critical paths. The trucks are already there.
Right.
What's interesting is that, of course, we're bringing a truck that's true in its form as a tractor. It's the first applications in the U.S. The rigid truck version of it is many, as with 6 million kilometers in Europe, in the Switzerland actually.
Yeah.
So we have other operations in Germany and other parts of the world. So the truck already is a reality, and I think from that we bring all the knowledge of it.
Right.
And it's not the critical path. The truck is there. Yeah.
And again, but Ed and I think, and a lot of people understand that, like the cars, the things that move, the trucks aren't the bottleneck. Like I know a lot of people. I want an EV, but I don't want to spend $1,500 on a charger at my house. And I'm like, what? You're going to buy a $70,000 thing. You'll never go to a gas station again.
Exactly.
It's going to cost you a fifth of or less. You know, you charge at night. Like spend the 50. Nah, it's too much money. You know. And so like humans aren't rational, right? We're not, really not. And so, I guess the question would be like, this bottleneck of infrastructure. Are you where are you seeing? Sounds like Northern California, but are you seeing other parts of the U.S. specifically where the bottleneck's easing a little bit?
A lot. I mean, we have a lot of governments that are coming to us now because they know what we're doing already in other places of the world. So we have a lot of governments coming to us to learn how to do it. What they're asking us mostly is, okay, how can we apply the same formula for our scenario? And of course, everyone is different. We can do, but they're coming to us for this area, which we didn't imagine that would happen.
Okay.
We're not into the consulting business for governments, but maybe we should be.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, why not? You have the expertise.
Yeah.
So there aren't a ton of. This is all very new technology across the board, industry-wide, right? Hydrogen fuel cells in heavy commercial vehicles is a new technology coming soon. We don't know anything about we can tell you the difference between the Rivian electric pickup truck and the F-150 Lightning and everything we know about Cybertruck. We don't know anything about Class 8s. So let's say we are Ed and Johnny's trucking company, and we're looking at a Tesla Semi, Hyundai's hydrogen version, or a Daimler, or I think Toyota. I just saw a press release that their powertrain has got some sort of certification. Why should we choose hydrogen over, first of all, this fancy Tesla Semi that we actually just did a big story on it. Did really well on our site because
people like Tesla.
Well, people like Tesla, but also we were the only outlet to get after this Tesla Semi truck. So we got a story on it. We went to their first customer was the Lay's Frito-Lay.
Yeah,
so they had a green zero factory, and they're shipping potato chips back and forth. People love it. So, and they're kind of cool looking. But why? I don't even know. Do we know what the cost structure is for those Teslas? Like, why yours versus any electric Class 8 vehicle? First of all.
Yeah, we think that especially in the heavy-duty, long-hauling, the hydrogen has a certain advantage because it's lighter in storage weight, so you have more payload on your truck, so your business opportunity is a big bigger. And on the other hand, the refueling is much faster than on a battery. It's not for the big tanks, not really to compare about diesel. It's a bit longer, but way faster than a battery electric truck with his huge big batteries.
Can I ask you a question, Martin? So you said that they have 70 kilograms of hydrogen on board. Can you make a bigger tank?
Of course.
Okay.
That's one of the nice things. The cylinders in that US version, we are using 10 of them.
Okay.
It's due to packaging, and because we think the 70 kilogram is a good compromise,
Right.
because adding more tanks would again add more capacity, more weight, more complexity, more space. We think it's a good compromise. If somebody needs more, we could technically add a third row of tanks, and then we have 100 kilograms. So there is not a technical end to that.
Okay,
so
so-
it's a modularity, if you want to say it that way.
I'm happy. I've always made that assumption. I've never talked to anyone like you before about this, but I've always said, well, why don't you just put a bigger hydrogen tank? Because compared to, adding more batteries, it gets really heavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas I've held a hydrogen tank. They're not, at least for a car, they don't weigh anything, and you just make it a little bit bigger. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I think that the starting point to your question is you make a decision to move to electric propulsion first, and then you choose the energy.
Got it. Yeah.
And so once you make a decision as a fleet that electric propulsion makes sense because I'm going to have all the benefits of it, as we said, torque and many other things. So
Efficiency.
the propulsion first, right? You switch to electric propulsion. Once you make that decision, and then you make a decision of the application of your use case, and then hydrogen makes sense for long-haul electric propulsion. So for first decision point is you switch to electric propulsion, which, as you consider, inevitable.
Yeah, well,
It will come there.
we know what the industry's up to. So.
I'm making every effort possible to mention
No,
inevitable.
Hey, you're doing
appreciate
great.
it.
You're
We
doing
appreciate it.
You're doing great, Mr.
Once you
Hyundai.
thank you.
Okay.
So
We got a time check on Martin. Martin
Okay.
actually has to leave, so
okay.
but we'll keep going with Ken for a little while longer. But
Can we get one more Martin question?
one more.
Okay. This technology.
Last question to Martin.
Okay, fuel cell hydrogen. Does it work in like boats and airplanes too?
Yeah, potentially, of course, yes. So we as a company in the group, we are really looking for more applications. So as you mentioned, marine could be a very good field because you mentioned the pollution of ports.
Yeah.
So at least for a big vessel, it could be at least the auxiliary energy at the port.
Oh,
That could be one. For other like short distance ferry boats, it's viable. It can be applied soon. Metros, trains, another application
Yeah,
which is really
It's a
suitable.
real-
So
yeah,
it's not. And our company is also talking about the urban air mobility. So
Right, yeah.
going to the third dimension with that energy source is a viable solution for
and we'll
us.
keep talking about this because all of those things we are already doing also.
Oh,
Okay.
So
Yes.
in fact, I'll be able to talk to you about that. One of my areas of my title, as you mentioned, covers commercial vehicles and fuel cell business. So fuel cell business for us is selling our fuel cell systems to other companies for other applications
Right.
like marine, air, stationary power, so off-road solutions.
Great.
But many of these we're doing already, and so we can be able to
All
talk
right.
about that.
So
too.
let's. So we excused Martin. Thank you. We understand you are a very busy executive. We just looked at the truck, and you just walked us through some of the specs. Before we go talk about more the bigger picture piece with Hyundai and your push to alternative fuels and zero emissions, I just looked at that diagram, and the driver is sitting in front of a large volume of cylinders containing hydrogen in under a high pressure. What have been, when you talk to maybe a fleet operator or somebody who's thinking of switching from traditional diesel liquid propellant they've known for a long time, do you need to sell them on any part of this, the safety or the cost to own, or what are some of the concerns that they have about switching, making this? It's a big jump.
Yeah, so the main points is really the structure of the vehicle. In the U.S., it's different to see the cab over, but in the rest of the world, we don't have to sell much. Once you get in the vehicle and try it, and you feel the quietness, the smooth operation, all of it is answered. I think your point about having the fact that you have behind you all the technology and the tanks for hydrogen, when you know that this is completely safe system, passing all the regulations and similar to the tanks that are used for other technologies, it's quite normal. So we've had really no issues on that side. What you do have, I think, is a point to understand that the vehicle is truly electric propulsion. So it's a very quiet vehicle, very efficient in torque operation, and that's really the biggest point. So not so much of a selling point to do. In fact, the operators that we have testimonials for the fleets in Switzerland that are very positive.
Yeah.
So we
I'm
think
sure. I mean, look, it's one of those things. As you said earlier, Ken, like you have to experience it. But once you feel EV torque, and I know people that tow with like electric trucks. I think we talked to one Tesla semi-truck driver.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get it going. There's no gears to screw around with. It just moves because again, electric motors make max torque before they even start moving. So it's revved up and ready to go. So yeah, it seems like an obvious or inevitable solution. It's for us, I think. And again, we've done over 40 episodes of this podcast. We've wanted a hydrogen person on from day one. So we finally got there.
Right. So but is it? You were talking a little bit about this before when Martin was here, just before he left. That again, your remit as the EVP of global commercial and hydrogen fuel cell business is it's bigger than trucking. You were talking about how the hydrogen fuel cell has other applications. Johnny asked about, could you put it on a boat? Could you put it on a plane? And you mentioned static storage.
Yeah. That's a great question.
How big is it truly? The sky's the limit on this. And I'll ask you the one question my team asked was, and is it really that? And you talked a little bit about this. Is it really that clean, right? Because a lot of the hydrogen comes from petroleum sources
or natural gas.
How is it? When you think about this from the holistic perspective, is it really that clean? Is it or is it something? Do we need further? Do we need a huge breakthrough to make this the ideal solution?
So there are many questions in that statement. So I'll cut them into pieces and start which one of those. But the first one we were talking about, and you brought up the topic of marine applications, and I said, well, actually, we're doing it.
Yeah.
In fact, we do that today. And I mentioned the tractor. You can see the logo H2.
Yes.
And that is the logo of our brand to sell our fuel cell systems to other applications other than our own. So in fact, we already provide our fuel cell systems for other applications, of course, including other BOSS applications in Europe, partners that do it like Iveco and so forth. But beyond that, for non-road applications, so like marine applications, even aerospace, even for aviation, and we have other applications like stationary power. You can think of it as any place where you need a source of electricity that today uses let's say a power plant out of diesel, instead can use hydrogen for a fuel cell system. So think about it as a replacement of diesel for any application. And whether it is stationary, mobile, aerial, it can be an application for it. So we are in that business today already.
But that's really, that's what you guys were saying about when the boats are just kind of sitting in the port. Because during COVID, when there was that log jam down at San Pedro, I was driving a Mercedes EQS, and it has an air cabin filter, and I was like, why does it have this? And I happened to be talking to a guy in Germany, the chief engineer of the EQS, and he goes, well, it's really developed for Beijing, but you look, he showed me where the screen was. Here's the air quality on the outside, and then you can see here it is coming on the inside. And I was on the 110, and I said, you know what? I'm going to drive down to San Pedro, and it went from 8 was the pollution level in downtown LA, and it was coming into the cabin at 1. I got down to San Pedro, it was at 70 because you had 100 ships idling, burning bunker fuel, in the port, and it was 70 and coming in at 5, and so I think that's huge. I mean, I think that's a huge application for hydrogen that I wasn't really aware of until this conversation. So that's wonderful.
As Martin mentioned, we are doing this for any other number of applications. It can be as well for trains, many other applications. So it's becoming more ubiquitous than it was before. Yeah. And it will happen. I think it's inevitable, as you said, that will come that way. But the other part of your question, and
is it really that clean? If you're driving the fuel from mostly.
But you asked a question about the whole value chain, the whole chain. So of course, if you have green hydrogen that's produced with renewable sources, then it is completely clean all the way through the chain. The application of it, I mean, in the truck, in our case, is clean, and the only output of it is water. It's quite clean water. But your question is, where does the hydrogen come from? And yes, you can produce hydrogen in many different sources.
You can burn coal to make hydrogen
You can
if
make
you want to.
anything, yeah, you want to. So, but our focus is to look at sources that are either green to begin with, or so renewable energies, or new types of energies that have not been used before. We are exploring, and we are doing already, as I mentioned before, the waste to energy, the biogas production, and then from biogas making hydrogen. So these are, let's say, new ways to make it that is not intuitive from what you do today. So you don't necessarily have to have electricity to make hydrogen. You can other ways, yeah.
Okay.
Fascinating.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I just feel bad that we're keeping them out of.
No, I know.
No, it's a pleasure. I mean,
next thing.
any other time that we have more time, I would be
maybe
more
the
than
quieter
happy to
place
do it.
too. The
Yeah.
noise,
It
the
became
background
quiet.
noise.
Did
is-
you notice it
is-
became quiet
It's
at the end?
insane.
But thank you so much for your time. It's really
Yes.
it's been really an excellent experience. I am very thrilled to be part of your InEVitable podcast, and you
Yeah.
reminded me of when I first got started with electric vehicles.
All right.
And
Yeah.
you do have a sense, you're right. Once you try it, and my daughter was 1 year old at the time, and I realized then exactly what you said,
Right.
that I'm not just doing this as a job,
Right.
you really are making a difference.
Right. Exactly.
And it will drive the difference. I have a picture of her in the car, the first electric vehicle in Mexico, sitting in there.
Oh, wow.
And it's quite remarkable to think that we're started that journey that way.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much for
Ken,
that.
it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much, and good luck with the new.
Thank you.
Exient. Exient fuel cell.
Yes.
Class 8 tractor trailer. So thank you
you.
so much for being on the InEVitable. Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you guys. Great. Thank you.